Hey guys, my name is Girish Bali, your host for today for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics on Back to Basics. So, guys, today we have a guest. Her name is Lipika Shah. She's from Axiom, and we're going to talk about cloud computing. We're going to talk about IoT. We're going to talk about AI, or is it the same thing? Well, how about if we find out on the show if it is the same thing or is a different thing? So we'll get into that show. Lipika, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Girish. Thank you for having me in your show, Back to Basics.
Thank you. Before we get into the basics of cloud computing and AI and IoT, what does back to basic mean to you?
Back to Basics means to me whatever I'm doing in my day to day life, my day to day activities, everything is back to basic. Like I have to, sometimes when we are cooking in the kitchen, we need to go, we need to go rewind, we need to rewind our steps, what we have learned, and what were the basics of doing that particular cooking. So that is like a back to basic. That's a very appropriate example which I'm giving, because these days people are doing that only at
Yeah,
home
yeah,
all the time.
yeah,
So and back to basics in everything, whatever you do, it's you need to have that basic thing in you, in which what you have learned in your basics, and then you need to inculcate in your knowledge that you're doing, and then that happens. So
yeah.
that is what back to basic means to me. Yeah.
And do you use that same concept even for your business and your company?
Definitely, I do, because like if I talk about Axiom IO, we first go totally to the basics. If we are offering any service to a company, we go to the basics, try to understand what the company is doing, what the company is facing, and what the issues are, or maybe some kind of support they require. So that's the basics you need to understand.
Yeah,
So that is what we do. First, we try to understand the basics of that business that company is running,
yeah,
and then we try to get the solution for it. Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes we tend to forget the basics even for business too. Sometimes, I mean, we get too busy with projects and I guess money and the goal, but then we tend to forget the actual goal when we first started. Um, and
Yes.
I think when you start a project, also you need to go to basics also on that also. So,
Correct.
Lipika, so what is your role in your company? Can you explain that a little?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm working as a marketing manager for Axiom IO,
Yeah.
and we have offices in India and US both.
Okay. So so you're on the marketing side of things. So how are things changing from the cloud computing point of view, from the trending point of view, you think?
So now again, if I come to the like cloud computing part, cloud is something which is a huge topic to talk on. And if I talk about the trends that I am seeing right now in cloud, there are three major trends that I'm seeing. One is the serverless computing. Now, serverless does not mean that there would be no servers around you, but it would just make a difference that there is some restructuring that has happened in your infrastructure,
Mhm.
and there is a cloud provider who is looking after your infrastructure.
Mm,
So that is what we call the serverless computing. So that is what is trending right now.
mhm.
The second thing is the network system is really fast, and really fast to actually process the information. The third thing is containerization. Now, what does that mean? Is basically cloud is all about software, codes, okay, and having your system on cloud. So that means you'll have a lot of software codes running, and containerization actually helps to manage the codes, the software codes. So
Mhm.
it's a very huge trending topic right now, because the businesses are actually upgrading their system so that they can actually upgrading their system between their cloud services. Now it could be from AWS, it could be from Microsoft Azure, it could be from Google Cloud, or it could be from any of the vendors. So
Yeah.
that is what, these are the three things which are trending very much right now.
So let me ask you this. Thank you for that. So serverless, is that like saying a MSP is going to be managing your servers. That's how it is. That's how you're saying it.
Yes, that's correct. It's the managed service provider.
Yeah.
And we very well know that today we have a lot of managed service providers in the market.
Hmm.
Totally depends on the businesses on how they, differ
Mm.
from each and they get into the right partner for them.
Mm. So, and then what about from the network point of view? I mean, are is the infrastructure there to have cloud computing, or do you think we still have a long way to go? Because in the states, I think we already have a better infrastructure, but then around the world, we're still working on that. So, how do you define that?
So, yes, you're right that we already have a system working around us,
Mm.
but it's always the cost that comes into mind of
Sure,
businesses.
sure.
So, a business would always want to optimize their cost.
Yeah,
So, when you talk about cost, you want to select the right MSP for you who can actually provide you the cost optimization so that you can focus on your business part,
yeah. So,
focus
so,
on your other operation part. Yeah.
so MSP is almost like another saying hiring a tech support, correct? Is that how you see it?
Yes, you're right. You can hire tech support. You can, in fact, even get offshoring your work. So
Hmm.
even that is the other work that you can do. Yeah.
And then what about the containering? I mean, I guess we need a lot of storage to save all the developings and the containers. So do you think we're running out of storage, or do you think we'll manage and it will happen? What are thoughts on that?
So on thoughts on containerization now, yeah, I mean there is a huge data that is flowing around, and I would say we are not running out of storage. If you, that's what I mentioned. If you have the right cloud service provider for you,
Yeah,
I'm sure containerization would work appropriate. So that is how your software codes are handled and managed by the service providers. And containers are very handy, very much handy. You will never run out of the storage when you're using that.
yeah. So from serverless and the network and the container, from your point of view, which one do you think is the hottest item out of the three?
I didn't get your question.
So out of the three, which one do you think is the hottest item? Do you think serverless container or the network side of things?
So now these things work parallelly. But
Yeah.
right now, if I talk about the hottest, topic or maybe the discussion which comes to a business person mind, it would be the containerization because ultimately the data is going to be handled. The
Yeah.
codes, the software codes that are running around the
Yeah.
system,
Mm.
that needs to be handled.
Yeah.
So definitely, because if you have containerization, you have serverless deployment as
That's
well.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Because it goes hand in hand, but I think if you have the OS, I think that actually runs, and because that's the brain of everything else, right? And how it runs.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and regarding the cost and the moving into the infrastructure, including the cloud, and I think it's called the hybrid model of that. So, are a lot of people are moving away from the actual servers in the data centers into the cloud, or do you think we still have a long way to go that we are educating people?
So, in this aspect, what I would say is yes, people are moving to cloud. Hybrid model is not expensive at all if you choose the right MSP for you.
Hmm.
So, because Axiom IO, in which the company I'm working, we actually provide a very stabilized form of BOT, that's build, operate, transfer model,
Hmm.
so that the business can, I mean, they can depend on us for the work, for the IT work, the team that we have, and then they can focus on their operational activities for
Hmm.
the cost.
Hmm.
So that ways we help in reducing the cost, optimizing the cost, I would say, for
Hmm.
the businesses. And yeah, I mean, till now, there are people who do not want to move to cloud because they feel that it's too expensive, it's too I would say the security part comes into issue, the compliance part come into issue. So
Mhm.
these are the factors that comes in place where businesses they don't want to move to cloud. But
Yeah,
when I talk about moving to cloud, it doesn't mean that you're spending lakhs and too much of money, because cloud is something wherein if you are using, you pay for that much. When you're not using, you do not pay for that. So
yeah,
that's the basic thing of cloud. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was speaking to one of the MSPs on my show. They were released back in July. I was wondering. Um, I asked them a question that we're saving a whole bunch of pictures and data onto the cloud. Let's say Amazon, because that was the example that I had. Um, but I think the security is the biggest issue from the consumer point of view. I'm not saying that I have inappropriate pictures. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that any personal pictures that I have, uh, is it safe? We don't know, right? So, uh, but it seems like the companies are getting a little smarter about the security, which is good. But how do we tell the people that it is definitely secured? I mean, it's a long training factor or educating factor to the people around us.
Yeah, definitely. So again, the question comes up of reliability. And so when we talk about security, giving the right, I would say the right flow, wherein if I'm providing suppose I'm providing a service, maybe data management to a
Hmm.
business.
Hmm.
So I am handling the data. I mean, that is all on Axiom.io, that the data is being handled
Yeah,
with proper compliance issues, if
yeah,
there is any,
yeah,
with proper security. Now, security is something wherein it's a vast topic again. Like if I start talking about it right now, it'll be a
sure,
huge thing to talk on.
sure.
But again, I would say that security is a very big factor now. If you see on COVID timings, it's like since 1.5 year, people are working from home,
Yeah.
and there is so much data flowing from here and there to and forth. So that's the thing, the topic of security comes in.
Mm,
So it's a very big thing. I mean, we at Axiom.io, we provide the trust, we actually provide the reliability of,
mm,
keeping the data secure
mhm,
without any compliance issue. So that is what we actually give on words and practically as well. So we we do have, kind of monthly, it could be people are subscribing for particular resources they look for,
mm,
and then that is how we segregate that. Fine, we are giving you 1 month resources, you
mm,
can have it, you can look how we are handling the security and compliance issue, and
mm.
if you're good to go, then we can subscribe for the full year or maybe hence going forward.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that is how we handle the security issues. Yeah.
So, one question from a consumer point of view: do you think that we should save the data in our, let's say, our NAS at home, or should we put that up in the cloud? What do you think on that?
So there are two things. Data should always be there on cloud, but having the factor that the cloud, they are like on the cloud where we are saving the data, it should be secure.
Mm,
Now it totally depends on a consumer, on how the consumer would, decide that which cloud is secure and I can secure my data over there.
mm,
So I would say if you have a physical pen drive, that can also be lost, right?
yeah,
If you have your data on a pen drive,
yeah.
but if you have your data on the cloud, it never gets lost.
But well,
Just
see, yeah, but one example comes in mind. I'm pretty sure there must be other companies, but Amazon has unlimited data for pictures. But then we also have videos. So when I looked at the prices for Amazon, it came out more expensive for me. So that's why people are going to the NAS point of view. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like cost is definitely a big issue for consumers.
yes, it is definitely. Again, when I speak about AWS, when I speak about Azure, when I speak about Google Cloud, I mean, these are the big players in
Yes,
the cloud service providers.
yes,
So, definitely, when it comes to cost, it would be expensive, but again, it's a trustworthy thing.
that's right.
So if now, like what I said, there are a lot of MSPs in the market. We at Axiom IO, we make sure that if we are giving you 10 days service also, it has to build a trust and reliability in you for
Mm,
Axiom IO.
mm,
That is what, and cost optimization is the main factor wherein it comes to place where we provide offshore. We
yeah,
provide offshoring. So that is where the cost is optimized. That helps in cost optimization.
yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you so much for that, by the way, because it seems like people are still confused that if they should put data on the cloud versus at home, and obviously hard drives, they will crash eventually. We will have to start making the move to the cloud to make it simpler. But security is definitely the play, and money, obviously, and the cost comes also in the way. So it seems like we'll have to eat less to get data up on the cloud. So that's how it looks like. So regarding IoT and AI, which is your artificial intelligence, so so does that mean that I speak with my Google, I speak with my Alexa? Is that considered IoT and AI, or are we talking automobiles and other items? Can you explain that a little?
Yeah, sure. So basically, if I talk about IoT, it's not automobiles. It's you're talking to Alexa, you're talking to Siri. I mean, that is what IoT and AI is all about.
Yeah.
So basically, you're actually you're having I mean, these are some trends in 2021 that has come up. I mean, it's going from past, but then right now, if I talk about the most trending thing in IoT, it's the health and safety, the equipments that are being monitored
Okay.
on in hospitals, right? So that is like the major thing. And yes, again, Alexa and Siri is always on the top.
Yeah, but the thing is that when it comes to healthcare, then the infrastructure and the network needs to be there, right? Because
Yes.
you're talking about a person who's, I'm just giving an example, a person who's sitting in Los Angeles and doing an operation in India. Okay, the network needs to be there, right? So it seems like maybe we're not there yet, or has there been cases that it has been successful from your point of view?
So now, if I talk about healthcare, it's right now the most impacted sector. Okay, and there are hospitals who actually have to deal with lot, I would say, large volume of data. It could be the patient's data, it could be the healthcare apps, it could be the devices that the doctors are using. So yeah, I mean, right now, if I see, we are not at par with it, the totally, I would say, 100% every hospitals are using the IoT trends or maybe the AI for getting all the information secure
Yeah.
in their premise. But then yeah, we are heading towards it, and I'm sure down the lane within um, I would say 2025, I think things would definitely change, and we can talk then about of how the hospitals are actually everything. If you are, I mean, you are a doctor, you are sitting in US, and there is a patient in India who wants to understand on how things, and it can be done online, it can be done through the web apps
Mm,
which companies build up. We have done it. We at Axiom IO, we have done it for our past clients. We have actually built up a web app through which the patient and the doctors can consult. They can have a proper consultation. So those kind of apps we have already built up.
mm.
So I can talk about it that yeah, we are at par, but yes, we are not 200% that every hospitals throughout the world is actually having that AI and IoT technologies.
Yeah, yeah. So it seems like healthcare is the biggest topic nowadays for IoT, and it's so. Is that the new trend that we will not go to the hospital and and we'll get things done remotely? That's how it looks like. For example, if I have some serious, knock on wood, I don't have any major diseases or something like that, and I don't have to fly to the U.S. So you're saying that I can get that done remotely versus traveling? I mean, is that the new trend of less time frame?
So I would say, I would not say no, that that is not a trend. Yes, it is a trend right now, because people, I mean, the doctors, they are actually sitting at their home now. I mean, before few days, I wanted to get a consultation from a doctor. So I just found that the doctor was online and we can speak online because we cannot travel. And this kind of situation, which has cropped in the whole world of COVID, it can be anything in the future. When COVID can come up, it can be anything which can
Yeah.
restrict you from going to the doctor, visiting the doctor. So why not sitting at home and getting the consultation?
So, do you think that COVID is the one actually boosted the rapid of this whole process? Because otherwise, we would have seen this years from now, right? To make this happen.
So no, COVID is not the reason that this thing has boosted up.
Hmm.
This was there, but yeah, now COVID has become the reason wherein every hospital, every business wants this thing with them.
Yeah.
Wherein you have that web application with you, you have that mobile app. You know that you need to consult a doctor for your child, for your family member, but you cannot travel. So that has become right now the trend, that people are actually just going to their mobile app, maybe Practo, that's the most famous one right now. They are just going online, searching for the doctor and just visiting the doctor. So
Hmm.
that has become definitely a very much new trend right now for AI.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, as I said in the beginning of my episode, AI and IoT, is that the same thing, or is that two different items?
So IoT, IoT and AI are two different items.
Yeah.
Definitely it is. So AI, so basically when we use AI as a platform, then we could say that, in fact, I would say personally that IoT platforms, they are better to monitor, and AI platforms and machine learning, those kind of platforms are little tricky when it comes for monitoring. So, yeah, I mean, it's actually, I would say, in IoT, customer experience is actually developing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think AI is more of a machine learning, and IoT is what is it? More internet over technology, right? That's how it is.
Correct.
So yeah, so that's how it is. So thank you so much, Lipika, for coming on here and giving some insight about cloud computing and AI and IoT and what the trend is nowadays and what your company is doing, which is your MSP providing and Xmio. So any last words before you leave today for from Back to Basics?
Yeah, so I would just like to conclude for cloud is, this is my message to everyone, whosoever is listening to the Back to Basics show here. So I would say, please do not get scared when you hear about cloud as a word. It's all about having your infrastructure, giving to a vendor whom you trust, and getting it secured and letting your load going to them, and then you can focus on your business aspects, on your business operations. So that is what we at Axiom IO is doing. So anyone wants to get connected, they can get connected to me on LinkedIn and Twitter. So we are there on all social media. Do get connected and take care of yourself, because this is a very hard time for everyone. And definitely, I mean, COVID is not going to end so soon. So do take care. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lipika, for coming on my show and making this brighter for me and my audience and my listeners. But thank you again, and hopefully we'll meet again and chat again, and hopefully we'll work again together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Girish, for having me here at Back to Basics. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, guys, we spoke with Lipika today, and we talked about cloud computing. We talked about IoT. We talked about AI. We talked about the three major things, which is what the serverless, the network, and the containers, right? Uh, but that's from the business point of view. From the consumer point of view, just keep in mind that just find the right cloud provider to give you proper storage, and obviously the cost comes in the way, But figure that out within yourself, that whatever cost is, you just have to figure that out. But that is the new norm. The NAS in your basement or even your office or whatever, that might just crash one dime and then you need to go to cloud because that is more reliable. You have to look at reliability and you have to look at security. And that's what Lipika said and mentioned. So, guys, as usual, as always, there is a quote of the day. And the quote of the day is cloud is about how you computing, not where you do computing. Just keep that in mind because that's what cloud computing is all about. It's all just like what Lipika said. Cloud is a massive word, even though that it's a 6-letter word, a 5-letter word, whatever you want to mention, but it is very basic. Just think about this for a second, okay? So guys, as usual, as always, comment, good or bad, either way, it'll make my show stronger day by day, and I'll bring quality guests and quality content, and of course, quality host. So guys, take care, God bless, and I'll see you next week. Next week's episode on Back to Basics.
Think that it was just because all I had to do was point and they would do everything for me. So I didn't speak. They took me to all these specialists and it just is what it is. So I think in my childhood, I had a learning disability that wasn't discovered until much later in high school. And I had to learn how to overcome those challenges of the way that my brain operates it doesn't operate in a linear manner, which is what multiple choice and Scantrons and all those exams and the SATs, PSATs, they're all formatted in that way. So I was an all A student. However,